In this vlog I describe some ghost stories from Manchester. There's so many that I've had to split it into south, the centre and north. This particular vlog focuses on the narrow strip from the airport to the university. Whilst maybe not as notorious as Bangkok's Suvarnabhumi airport, Manchester Airport does have its ghost stories. In the 1970s, a ghost was reported in what was once the barracks of 613 RAF Squadron. This phantom old man has been reported by cleaners and late working staff. The occasional scream has also been heard coming from the building. Also from the 1970s, there are reports of an airman dressed ghostly figure and other unexplained phenomena like slamming doors in empty rooms. Doors slam shut, lights flicker on and off, and chillingly when workers investigate the source of the commotion, they encounter a pitch-black room as silent as the grave, yet so bitterly cold that one often can see one's own breath. Former employees have reported seeing the apparition or hearing inexplicable noises. It's not unusual to hear blood-curdling screams in the distance, often in the area of the departure gates. The most common account is of a male figure dressed as an airman, seen wandering around the departure gates at Terminal 3 before disappearing. Other reported occurrences include slamming doors that are found to be empty when investigated, and motion-sensitive lights that don't activate when a figure is seen entering a toilet. One letter from a former airport worker in 1971 suggested the ghost might be the spirit of a night watchman who died on the premises years earlier. These incidents are often concentrated in the area of Terminal 3 that was originally part of the airport's redevelopment in the 1970s. Some staff were so scared that they did not want to go into the terminal alone after dark. Actually, the two stories are the same, as Terminal 3 was built on the site of 613 Squadron, although it's claimed that the night security guard who was killed on the spot in the 1960s. One letter written in 1971 by a former airport worker reveals how he encountered an old man who he believed to be the ghost of a night watchman who was killed 3 years earlier. Or even that the activity and general eerie ambience of Terminal 3 can be attributed to a farmer who once owned the land. I was abused by a lady with a Spanish accent in the upstairs bars of Terminal 2 for refusing to order online and insisting on paying by cash. I wonder if she was somehow demonic. (1926) at the site of an old bank in Wythenshawe. The Wythenshawe Public Library was originally moved into the building, while the original was being rebuilt. During the night shift, with only 2 guards around, one of the internal downstairs phones rang, and breathing and whimpering could be heard when it was answered. When the night guards investigated, they found a handset off the hook upstairs, but no one else was on site. At a private residence, Newell Road, Wythenshawe, around 2000, was haunted by a male ghost who would make its presence known by talking to the occupiers. A male witness was unnerved when the voice whispered his name in his ear when there was no one else in the property. At the picnic corner in Broad Oak Road, locals will tell about a mythical woman that haunts a patch of boggy land opposite Brownley's Green Methodist Church. For generations, children have been issued with the same warning: watch out for the Grey Lady at Bench Hill. The White or Grey Lady is the ghost of a woman who escaped from the nearby castle but drowned in the pond which once stood there. More recently, right-wing activist Tommy Robinson held an unauthorised barbecue at the corner to announce his candidacy in the European Parliament elections. Another story identifies the woman as a Victorian girl. Either way, her ghost could be heard after the sun went down. There's a story in Wythenshawe about a ghostly apparition near an oak tree. People claim that on foggy nights they've seen the shadowy figure standing by the tree. It's said this might be a spirit of a long-ago woodsman who died in the forest. The tree was his favourite spot, and his presence lingers there. In Wythenshawe there's a story of a haunted bridge. A young girl is said to have drowned in a river under the bridge many years ago. Now some locals swear they can hear her sobbing on quiet evenings when they cross the bridge, and sometimes a faint figure can be glimpsed in the water. Between 2006 and 10, a house in Baguley, someone felt a firm slap on their left shoulder while in the dining room. About a year later, another witness received a slap while making a bed. Other people felt a force pressing down on them, and one lady claimed to have been pushed over while passing through the kitchen. The activity ceased soon after. Wythenshawe Hall is a 16th century Tudor house in Wythenshawe, ranking as one of the 50 most haunted places in Britain. This Tudor mansion is on the edge of town as being the location of some rather uncanny occurrences. The most familiar apparition to call Wythenshawe Hall home is the White Lady, thought to be Mary Webb. Miss Webb was a servant at the hall who was killed at the time of the English Civil War, and has since been known to appear just outside her former quarters, sobbing in a long white gown. Fiancé was one of the parliamentarians who besieged the hall. He died from a shot from Captain Adams, and in revenge she shot and killed him. It's reported that many soldiers took over the hall and shot her dead. It's said that Mary can be seen sobbing and walking frantically from room to room, trying to flee the soldiers and her oncoming fate. On one occasion in 1919, a visitor to the hall and her daughter witnessed the White Lady for themselves. They'd spent an hour looking around the various rooms at pictures and decor when they decided to walk upstairs to view the bedrooms. As they reached the top of the stairs, they both heard what sounded like a woman sobbing. As they investigated, they noticed something in the corner of their eye. They both turned to see a woman dressed in a long white dress walk down the corridor and into one of the bedrooms. They presumed it was a guided tour or a reenactment of some kind. They both followed to find the woman into the room to find it empty. They both thought there must be another door in the room somewhere leading out, but there was just one. The woman had disappeared into thin air. The White Lady Webb is not without ghostly companions. Poltergeists have been known to play tricks on security guards, with inexplicable bumps in the night, including the sound of gunfire. On one particularly active evening, a large tapestry flew off the wall, trapping the guards underneath. Strange dragging and shuffling sounds had been heard coming from the library. When the sounds were investigated, they seemed to stop, and nothing seems out of place. However, sometimes in the 1980s, a warden discovered a heavy bookcase doorway leading to a servants' quarters was open, despite it having been closed earlier in the night. Also, several photos have been taken in the library showing unexplained figures, orbs and mists. Less threatening apparitions include a group of monks seen walking through the grounds. On one particular night, Kevin Boyd and his friends were using Wythenshawe as a cut-through on their way home, when they suddenly came upon several monks in front of them. The monks seemed to be walking at a lower level, only on their knees upwards could be seen. With Kevin and his friends stopped in their tracks, they both watched as the monks silently walked through the field and then dissipated before their very eyes. They both ran to the exit of the park as fast as possible, in a panic. Once home to a martyred saint, the 16th century Barlow Hall is rumoured to be haunted and hide a mile-long secret tunnel, rumoured to run from Barlow Hall to Hough End Hall on Nell Lane. St Ambrose Barlow is said to walk the upper part of the hall, as is sometimes a headless woman. St Ambrose was canonised in 1970. He was tortured and killed for his Catholic faith in the 17th century. Current staff still report feeling a presence or seeing mysterious shadows flit across the room, and the Hope family were no exception. A servant on clearless moonless nights who drowned in the lake after poorly executed practical joke went wrong sometimes returns to run across the Mersey. A poltergeist carries coal and moves other items between rooms. At the entrance alleyway to Chorlton Park, in 1979, a witness sitting near the entrance to the park with their cousin watched two young twins in old-fashioned school uniforms whistling and walking towards them. One of the twins smiled at the witness just prior to both siblings walking through the railings and disappearing. The witness screamed and fled to the scene, although the cousin did not see the apparitions. Tracy, who was just a teenager at the time, recounts her unsettling experience of seeing two children in old-fashioned school uniforms who seemed to vanish into thin air. "I still can't remember it vividly," says Tracy, reflecting on the eerie encounter. "I was visiting my cousin Tanya in Chorlton after my family had moved to the area from Warrington. We were just out for a walk near Sandy Lane, a place where we used to hang around all the time. It was late in the afternoon, maybe school time, and we decided to sit on a wall just to have a chat." What happened next would forever change Tracy's perspective on the supernatural. As she glanced towards the park gate, she noticed two children walking in her direction. "I remember how strange they looked," she recalled. "They were dressed in old-fashioned school uniforms, but what struck me most was how over-neat they appeared. Their clothes seemed out of place, like something from another time." As the children approached, Tracy realised they were identical twins. They were holding hands and walking side by side, one of them even whistling. The sound of the footsteps echoed off the tall Victorian houses lining the alleyway. It was like I was drawn into the eerie moment and everything else faded into the background. In 1990, at a private residence in Chorlton, 4 students moved out of the property after experiencing a high number of strange occurrences, including electrical items being switched on and off, and the sound of running water in the bathroom when taps were off, slamming doors and manifestations of a monk-like figure. Could this have been Mork and Mindy's house, where Dave Cato and I DJ'd at a barbecue? And neither of us were supporting Tommy Robinson, and I don't recall an angry monk, but I do some very irate neighbours. Nicholas Cook was a police constable in the 19th century Chorlton, who one night in 1876 was alerted to the activities of a cat burglar operating in the area. He noticed a mysterious character lurking in an alleyway and attempted to confront the individual. However, he was shot in the chest and tragically died in the process, yelling out "murder" as he went down. If this murder was not chilling enough, then was the added angst as 2 local men, the Habron brothers, were arrested, charged and sentenced to hang for the crime. It's only years later that the notorious Charlie Pierce, a travelling burglar, admitted that he had killed PC Cook. Fortunately, the 2 brothers had not hung, but by this point and were pardoned. However, it's still thought that the spirit of PC Cook could still inhabit the area near the Lead Station Bar, which was the former police station. In the 1970s, there were stories of nurses at Mauldeth Hall, then a care home, had seen a headless figure wandering about that scratched their necks at the back. In 2021, at Highfield's Country Park, Levenshulme, a dog graveyard, once owned by a farmer and now hidden away in the park, is reputedly home to playful barking, which can be heard after dark. Stories say that the haunting sound began after a local resident buried their dog within the park. At the Packhorse on Spath Road, I used to clean there and make some food, and there was a young girl who used to brush past me and say "excuse me." I also used to hear hooves from the stables out the back. Needless to say, I soon gave up both jobs. That was Donna Hill. In 1933, at a house in Levenshulme, a poltergeist outbroke break caused hundreds of pounds of damage in the house, pulling taps from the wall and flooding the site and throwing household items out of the window. A team of 2 people was said to have laid the entity, although their methodology is not clear. Me dad grew up in 31 Lonsdale Road and me mum grew up in 16 Cromwell Grove. Both were haunted, but Cromwell Road was the worst. I never looked forward to visiting my nana on a Saturday. The house used to creep me out, and that was Lisa Dudley Williams. Between 2004 and 2008, at a private residence, Elsham Gardens, Gorton, a former occupier of the property reported that her son had a female friend named Molly, who would wait in his room when they were out. She herself had seen a dark, tall shadow on the landing. Neighbours also told her of the previous occupiers had moved out after encountering the ghost of a young boy. The 2014 paranormal investigation, the case of the Gorton poltergeist, documented in episodes of programmes like Ghost Hunters, of a video of a toddler seeing a scary boy in his family's Victorian old house in Gorton, also went viral in 2024, sparking discussion about the area's paranormal claims and haunted reputation. Belle Vue Gardens was reputedly haunted, but I can find no further information. Southern Cemetery is certainly the sort of place one associates with ghost stories, but I can find none. There's a huge elaborate tomb of Victorian textile millionaire John Rylands and his wife, Enriqueta, whose public generosity bought the magnificent John Rylands Library. Nearby we find a resting place of Mr. Rylands' contemporary Daniel Adamson, the successful engineer who kick-started the Manchester Ship Canal, and the consequent industrial boom from a meeting at his Didsbury home. But there are no reports of their spirits being seen. The old parsonage in Didsbury is said to be haunted by the ghost of Mrs. Newell, the wife of the curate who once lived there. The house has gained a reputation for being haunted, leaving servants to leave the house to be abandoned before Fletcher Moss bought it and restored it. At the corner of Spath Road and Hulme Road, Didsbury, in 1957, in the garden, a ghost dog was seen by the grave of a small black dog. An entity is said to have emerged from an old disused house on the corner of Parsonage Road and Swinbourne Grove, Withington, and give chase to a couple of passers-by. At the Paupers Graveyard, a junction of Nell Lane and Prince's Parkway, Withington, stories of ghostly youngsters in this area are common, and one witness saw a small line of children crossing Nell Lane and heading towards a field where it's said the workhouse once stood. Gailey Road, Fallowfield, in the 1970s, a grandson to the woman who once lived there, recalled that when he stayed over, he would often see a ghostly man at the foot of the bed. The apparition would do nothing but stare out of the window. In the gardens of Appleby Lodge, a wide-eyed and excitable young man attempts to befriend strangers. Stroking the strangers and inexplicably talking about doves, he seems both friendly and harmless. Should you encounter him, do explain that he has a loving family in Indonesia who are happy to hear about his time in Manchester. There are a number of stories related to Antwerp Mansions in Rusholme that I've already covered in a vlog on its own. The mysterious folklore surrounding Hulme Hall mentions buried treasure and its unearthly guardians, suggesting a connection to ghosts or spirits associated with property. The story says that the Dowager Lady Moseley buried a hoard of treasure and protected it with magical incantations. When she died suddenly, the treasure's location was lost. Demons are said to guard the hoard, and fortune tellers have long tried and failed to find it. At the Great Western Hotel, Moss Side, a figure dressed in grey is often reported in the basement. Z Arts, the Zion Arts Centre, which was once a church, has rumoured hauntings by a little girl ghost. Between 2008 and 12, at the Samuel Alexander Building, University in Manchester, The ghost of the Australian-born British philosopher Samuel Alexander was said to have been spotted by teaching staff in the hall which bears his name